Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on today's webinar. I'm Katie Lloyd-Wilkinson, the lead for Suite International, and I'm joined by my colleague Sarah St. Ruth, the product manager for Suite. Today's webinar is likely to last around 30 minutes, and your microphones will be on mute whilst we run the webinar. We would love to hear your questions though, so please write them in the chat box and we will answer them at the end. For any of your colleagues that would like to see this recording, we will be sending it to anyone who's registered for the webinar within the next few days. Today's session will give you a basic understanding of Suite. It will show you how it fits in with the platform, some of the benefits that you might get from using it, and we'll actually be demonstrating the product too. There are three things that make Suite unique. Suite is a web-based application for the ArcGIS platform to edit spatial data. Suite is an application with configurable spatial rules, which mean that data is valid at the point that it is entered or edited, and that removes the need for any QA process. Suite also speeds up the time taken to edit a job, whilst also extending spatial editing to non-GIS teams, making it available for everyone. So going into all of those in a little bit more detail. Where does Suite fit in the ArcGIS platform? Suite works like many of the other premium apps. It works with ArcGIS Enterprise and also ArcGIS Online. Suite has a builder, and with the Suite builder, you build instances of Suite applications. We'll be demonstrating the Suite applications today. The second thing that makes Suite unique is that Suite allows you to build rules into the application to ensure the validity of your spatial data. So for example, you may decide that when the user edits data, you want to allow or not allow overlaps, allow editing holes or not editing holes. You build in those rules. This might be a knowledge worker or might even be a member of the public. So we're going to get into a demonstration today. There'll be about a 20-minute demonstration, and then there'll be some time for questions at the end. Thank you.
Hello everybody. So my name's Sarah St. Ruth and I'm the product manager for Suite. And today, during the demonstrations, I'm going to be showing you some of the most common use cases for Suite, some of the most common challenges it's solving. And whilst these aren't necessarily the existing customers' applications, they are using the exact same principles as what we've got customers using right now. So for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be showing you lots of examples of Suite. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end, but please do write in your questions. We will get back to you and answer them if we don't get time to today. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, I wanted to show you the Suite Builder. So this is where we create apps. So this should feel very familiar for those who already use our ArcGIS platform. So you would be able to create your own app and configure your own rules and configure the user interface for that user. It's very much leaning on the COT side. So in terms of you're able to, it's not coding, it's defining what sort of functionality you want to appear in that app. So you can see I've got a range of different applications here, and I'm going to be going through a good majority of these today. So the first one that I wanted to show you is our most popular use case for Suite. And this is the ability to be able to capture land ownership parcels. So this demonstration in particular shows a number of different principles of Suite. The first one being is that you can simplify the interface for users who might not necessarily come from a GIS background. So you can create applications for users and make them available throughout your organization. The second thing that this application is showing is the ability to create data which is actionable almost in real time. So I'm going to show you what that means as well. And this is by using the Suite rules. Okay, so let's begin. So the first thing to note is our user interface. So you'll see there's actually not very many buttons at all. And again, making sure that there's not too much on the screen for a user for the first time. We're just trying to lower that learning curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new land ownership parcel. The data that you're seeing here is data produced by Ordnance Survey. This is a sample of master map data. So it's really, really high detailed data. And I want to capture some more red land ownership boundaries. Now I've got a couple of rules on this data. One of which is 2 land ownership boundaries cannot overlap. So let's see what happens when I try to create a new land ownership parcel. So the first thing to note is actually I want to snap to this underlying data. So I'm going to turn snapping on. And what you can see is I've actually created quite a large overlap over the one labelled 42. So how's Suite going to handle this and resolve it? Well, what it does is it will flash orange, so it tells me that it's done something. It actually gave a message along the bottom as well, giving me some information about why it's changed my data. Now, what's really powerful here is that that data is now completely valid against my business rules. So at the point of which I've added it into my map, it's run that rule set and it's made sure that data is valid. But what happens if we began to edit it? Well, the next thing to notice is you'll see along the top, we've now got some more options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reshape. And I'm going to pull this vertice over here, so it's got more of an overlap. But what that's actually done is when I created the feature, the original land parcel, and it had that overlap, it recognized that there was an inherent spatial relationship between the parcel that I created and the neighbor that I overlapped. So when I'm editing one of these features, it knows that it needs to edit the other one as well. So this will prevent any overlaps, but it also prevents gaps occurring in our data as well. So it's maintaining that data validity on every single edit. And that means that we can then go and use that information elsewhere in our business to inform our other business processes or to generate reports. The other piece of functionality I'm really excited to show you today is a piece of functionality we've had in Suite for quite a while. Some of you may recognize, if you've seen Suite before, that it's had a bit of a makeover. And this is actually going to be our new release. We're going to do a beta release next month, and it's going to be with this new user interface. So what I wanted to show you today is the new functionality for plans. Now, for those of you who are new to Suite, plans is the ability to upload an image and then begin capturing information from that image. So how do we do that? Well, I've actually set up a new development area. I've saved it as an environment, so I'm just going to go to my new development and I'm going to upload an image. And great, now I can see my new development. So what I can do is I can rotate it. I can make it a little bit bigger and I can position it. If I wanted to, say if I wanted to skew that a little, I can move these independently. And if I wanted to, I can actually bend and warp the image as much as I like to completely fit that in. That's pretty cool. It's pretty accessible as well. So, you know, that idea of being able to quickly upload an image and be able to move it around until you've got it where you want it. But what if you actually have the coordinates of where this image should be placed? Well, what we've done in this new release is we've allowed this advanced option. And this gives you the control points where you can define the X and Y of both the image and also where it should be positioned on the map. So this is really exciting for us. This allows, you know, pretty much any type of user to be able to upload this image and be able to capture that information they need. Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on now And I'm going to just show you, I'm actually not going to demo this one, but I'm going to encourage you all on this call to try it. This is the Community Map Editor. So the Community Map Editor is an application which Esri released last year. And this is the ability to be able to capture a huge amount of features. So let's just have a look at what features we've got available. So we can capture landscape features, hardscape. I won't go into all of these. But what you can see is that there's lots and lots of different types we can collect. So what's the purpose of this? Well, Esri had the requirement to be able to allow any of its ArcGIS users to be able to add features into their topographic maps and their other community maps. They wanted the application to be really simple and easy to use, but also the data which is produced, they can then use that as quickly as possible into the topographic map and other maps as well. So what I've done here is I've actually created, for those of you that know English football, you may recognise this legendary site. This is Tranmere Rovers Football Club. So what I've done is I've just added a little bit more information. So I've added in the pitch and the various training pitches and the car park. Now, what that means is after as we've received this, they can do the final QA and then they can accept it into the base map. And this is what it looks like today. Turned off all the layers and you can see that this is now baked in. But I definitely encourage any of you today, anybody with a named user can go ahead and have a go at this application. Okay, so the next use case we have for Suite is one that we get a lot of questions about. So this is Forestry, and one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this today is because it's looking at these spatial rules. So we saw one before, which is two land parcels can't overlap. But in this one, we've got hierarchical rules. So here we've got forestry blocks, and these are defining large areas of forest. Within forestry blocks, we have compartments. So we divide our forestry blocks based on natural features or man-made features such as roads or rivers. We then create subcompartments, and subcompartments might be different species of trees. It might also be that they're at a different stage, that they might be getting felled, or it could be that it's a slightly different land use. So we want to capture it, but it's part of this continuous block. So you can see that there's many subcompartments and compartments within here. Now the complexity comes in that a compartment cannot exist outside of a block, and the same goes for subcompartments. They can't exist outside of compartments or blocks. So how does Suite handle this? Well, let's have a look. So first of all, I'm going to try and create a compartment outside of a block. So it's telling me that the map's updating, so I'm just going to create here. You can see I've got this message again. It's telling me that it can't create this feature, it's breaking my rules, but it's keeping me involved, it's giving me the information I need to rectify this. So I'm going to capture this forestry block down here. Now before, you saw me capturing data and it was relatively simple. Here we've got some natural data. So we've got this drawing menu here. Oh, that's wrong. And we can select some other different ways to capture this feature. So I might want to select freehand because I'm following a natural feature. Creating that vertice by vertice might take me quite a long time. So I'm just going to follow this. Okay. Now I also had a rule that two blocks can't overlap. So it's a similar behaviour you've seen before. Suite is handling that overlap for me. But it's also done something else. Suite's got a rule that says that blocks must be covered entirely by compartments, and that compartments must be covered entirely by subcompartments. So what you can see here is I've got one block, one compartment, and one subcompartment. So let's take that compartment And let's split this. So there's different ways of splitting within Suite. We can, as the same as the drawing, we can split using a line or we can split using a polygon. So I'm just going to split using a polygon for now. And I'm just going to capture this feature here. And I'm going to bring it down and capture this feature. So now what we should have is one block, 3 compartments, and 3 subcompartments. So what I'm going to do now again is I'm going to split this one, this subcompartment into 2. Those of you might guess where this is going. I'm now going to show you what that looks like. So we've got one block, 3 compartments, and 4 subcompartments. So Suite is handling the spatial rules hierarchically as well as handling them just saying handling overlaps. It's also handling those containment rules, and it's not allowing us to place data somewhere where it's not allowed to be. So now this data is valid for me to go and use that in further analysis. The next demonstration that I have for you today is looking at ward boundaries. So if those of you who've attended Suite demos before, you may well have seen this demonstration before. But it's a really important concept of Suite. So how can you edit a boundary and ensure that you have not created gaps in your data, to make sure that you've got full coverage of your population, and to be able to create data which can immediately be commented upon by the public, let's say. So in this example, I've got individual ward boundaries. I've got a rule which states that I can't create wards outside of this borough. So if I try to create a ward over here, it's going to show very similar behaviour as the forestry one, but of course completely different data, different workflow. So what I want to understand here is what can I do to better evenly distribute the population. So I'm going to take a look at some charts. Now this is a really important concept within Suite, is that sometimes there's stuff that we can't automate. A user needs to make a decision. And this user might not come from the GIS world. They might not know how to do that analysis. So why don't we show them all the information that they need to see to enable them to make an accurate decision. So here I've got some property counts of all the different wards. I can expand this, so I've got a little bit more real estate to have a look and dig into that detail. And I've got some other charts which are yet to be populated. So I'm just going to make this a little smaller for now. What I've noticed is that Hanger Hill and East Acton are not evenly dispersed. East Acton has a higher population. So we can see that if I select these 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually edit these fields, and so I'm going to edit Hanger Hill. And I've got the options to edit via vertice, or I can edit it using a line. So I'm just going to edit using a line. And now I can see the impact of those changes. So whilst East Acton still have a higher population, it's only by 300 now. I've increased Hanger Hills. And a fantastic feature of our platform as a whole is we can use data which is being shared into feature services. So this is what Suite is using. We can use them throughout the platform. So what does that mean? This data that I've edited here can be put into a story map. It can be shared out, and I can put it into an app, such as the swipe map. And I can see the impact of those changes. So I could share this with stakeholders, or I could share it with the general public. I might even want to offer a survey using an application such as Survey 123 to allow for public comment. But by using the ArcGIS platform, we're easily able to share this information to the users we need to. And now we've got an application which allows any of those users to be able to edit that data and for it to be valid. So we've covered quite a bit on the spatial rules that we have for Suite. What I wanted to share with you today is a concept called connectivity. So this is actually defining how features connect to one another. The other thing that I've done in this app is I've actually turned on the tool names here as well. And if I wanted to, I can change the theme. So this allows a user who's using Suite to be able to customize how they want to view the data, but you as the person who's configuring the application decide what it should look like. Now, what I've got in this application is I'm looking at road networks, and I want to edit the underlying road network data that I have. So this might reflect a new housing development that has been created, or proposed road changes. I want to understand how that will impact on my existing network. Now, the thing with networks is that they need to know that when you're setting them up, how features are connected to one another. So this is what we've modeled in Suite. I've got some rules that say 2 road links can only connect to one another at ends of other road links. And when there is a valid connection, automatically create a junction node. So let's see what Suite does. So I'm going to create a road link. And what you can see is automatically it's showing me all of the valid connections. So if I was to create a road link here, it's come up with some connectivity issues. So it's telling me I must have a node at the start and the end, and it must also connect to another link. So let's see what happens when I create a valid connection. You can see the count of my connectivity has gone down. It's still highlighting red, and actually if I was to deselect that, you'll see that it persists that highlight. So it's telling me as a user that there's an issue in my data. And then what I can do is I can create a new road link. Now I've got no connectivity issues in my data. I know if I was to run this through my network editing tools, so the ability to be able to create a new network, this data will go through and it will create a valid network. And that's great. But there was a couple of other little subtle things in there. It automatically, when I select this feature, you saw before that all of these options became available to me. For applications like this where it's showing the labels, we're using terminology such as add instead of append. And again, just using that dictionary just to make these apps as accessible as possible. The other thing that it did is it automatically created these junction points for me, these junction nodes. What we're trying to do here is really remove the risk of human error. We know when data is valid to persist. So we can model that within Suite, and Suite can handle that for us. So for those of you, if you joined us earlier this year for the release of the Phase 1 Habitat Survey, I just wanted to show this again. It's an application for collecting habitats out in the field. So Suite is actually available offline. You can take it out into the field and it will run all of those rules to make sure that your data is valid. You can take it off currently in Android and Windows, and coming in 2020 will be iOS as well. So this is what it looks like in our new user interface. And what I want to do is I want to capture some new habitats. So a couple of little things that we have here is you can see all of the different types of features I can capture. I've also got a search now. So I can capture target notes, or I can quickly search for Phase 1. And the idea here is this application wouldn't be used typically by the GIS manager at an organisation. It would be used by the ecologists, the subject matter experts, and giving them an application that they can quickly go out and capture this information. So I'm just going to capture this habitat. I do apologise if there are any ecologists on the call. I am not an ecologist, so I apologise in advance if I classify this incorrectly. So we've got a couple of rules set up. One of those is that habitats can't overlap. So you can see that it's handled that overlap, but also habitats must exist within our survey boundary. So it handled that overlap too, simultaneously. Now, something we haven't really touched upon yet is how the suite deal with attributes. Well, in this scenario, we want to there is a lot of attribute capture you can do for phase one. And for any type of habitats really, lots and lots of information, but sometimes you don't need to capture everything depending on the type of habitat. So we wanted to really simplify that data input. So here I'm asked for the type of habitat. So I'm going to take a guess at grassland and marsh. I'm now asked for which level one. So I'm going to choose neutral grassland, and I'm going to say it's semi-improved. Now, what you can see is it's actually now created some symbology on there. This is complying, for those of you who use it, with the JNCC symbology. And then what we can do is, does this require a review? I'm going to say no. I can add some notes there. I can add some species. And also you'll see it's automatically captured who has it been created by, who is it edited by, when was it created, when was it edited. It's also captured the name of my project and the project number. So really quickly, I've been able to capture valid habitat data. Great. Okay, so what I really wanted to show you there is that the fact that we can model the actual input of attributes as well. The final application I'm going to show you today is a favourite of ours. So if you have seen Suite, you have probably seen this demonstration before. What we have here is a farm, and in this scenario I'm a farmer and I want to capture some new crops. I want to see the impact that will have on my revenue. I also want to look at potentially adding some biodiversity to my farm as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new holding. So I'm going to go to land use, I'm going to create a holding. Now I've got a rule that says crops should only exist on holdings. I'm going to finish there actually. Okay. And I've got a no overlap rule, so you can see Suite's handling that as well. Okay. So because I've got that rule saying that crops can only exist on holdings, it's automatically created a crops layer for me. Now, the field that I really want you guys to look at is this income potential. So right now it's at 0. That's because we don't have any crops growing on this field. What I might want to do is have a look at my current potential income, what's the current spread of diversity, what's the expected revenue breakdown. So I may check how much I could make from barley. Okay, and what effect does that have? Well, I've actually got quite a lot of barley on this field already, on my farm already. So maybe just to de-risk, I might want to try and grow a different type of crop. And I can see that actually potatoes and sugar beet are a lot lower. So let's change it to sugar beet and see what happens. So you keep an eye on that income potential. Now I can see it's had a massive jump. I can see it's affected this. I can see that actually it's still not the biggest crop that I grow, but it's improved the diversity I have on my farm. I can see the expected revenue breakdown there as well. Fantastic. Okay, I'm happy with this scenario. So what I may want to do now is I might want to have rather than digitize each piece of scattered rock that I have, I might just want to say that 5% of my field is damaged. Now, I don't know if that was a little too fast, but if you keep an eye on that, I'm just going to undo this and do that again. So keep an eye on that top field. And you can see that that's changed because now 5% of our field can't grow any crop. So what we've been able to do here is model conditional attributes. If we can do it based on the size of a field, but we can also do it based on other attribute input as well. And we've been able to automatically calculate that and present that back to a user. So what we've done there is create a really simple output, but we've masked all of that complexity, all of that analysis, which goes on in the background. So the final thing that I'll be showing you today is my favorite feature in Suite. So I wanted to save the best for last, which is, well, what if I'm editing on my map and I need to make a decision? So in this scenario, I'm looking to improve biodiversity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to capture quite a large water feature. Now, I appreciate this sometimes can be a little bit laggy over internet connections, but hopefully what you are seeing is that we're seeing the loss of income that I'm suffering because of my giant water feature. You know, we could be displaying here the increase in biodiversity. We could be displaying any sort of metric, how much it costs if you wanted to dig up a road to do pipe maintenance, or it might be how much you're intersecting a flood zone if you're creating a new development. But this idea of being presented information as you're editing allows you to make decisions. So here I can see that my lost income in one of my fields is at 0. Well, to me, although my objective is to increase biodiversity, so what I can do is I can change the size and I can create a new water feature in this field. And I'm not going to lose any income. And that was because I was presented with that information immediately as I was editing. If you imagine trying to do that workflow right now and giving it to a farmer to potentially do that, it might prove a little bit impossible, potentially. So being able to present to them an application where they're able to model their own farm and also be able to follow the rules and capture data which can then be used in further analysis immediately is available through configuring apps in Suite. So that's all I'm going to show you today. And I believe we've got a little bit of time for some questions. So we're just going to pick a few out. So I've actually got one of my colleagues with me today. So I've got Simon with me. Is there any?
So one question is, can it be translated to other languages?
So Suite can be translated into other languages. At the moment, it's using machine translation, but we are having conversations with local distributors, and we are talking about the possibility of localizing it further. So yes, the answer is yes, it can use different languages, and we can improve it in the future.
Thanks, Sarah. May this be applied to school districts?
Absolutely. If you've got the data for school districts and you know the rules which apply to editing these, yes, you can use Suite for that purpose.
And can the data be stored in an Oracle database?
Suite is using feature services. So it doesn't matter where you're publishing your data from, it just needs to be an ArcGIS feature service. So it can be coming from your ArcGIS Enterprise, or it can be coming from ArcGIS Online.
Okay, thanks. So is there a possibility to create features using coordinates?
That is something that will be released in the next release of Suite, so in the beta.
And can you consider Suite a type of web app builder because it's a configurable app?
It's definitely following a very similar model to Web App Builder and to Survey 123 and other applications in the platform. So it is the ability to have a builder and add your data in and configure the functionality you want your end user to have.
Okay, brilliant. And you've shown importing images, but can you import other data such as CAD files?
So in terms of CAD files, no, but what we can do is if that data is published as a feature service, we can actually use reference layers So here let's see if it's coming up. It might take a second to load. No, see if it's going to give it a second to see if it will. Here we go. So what I'm able to do here is I'm able to add a reference layer into Suite, and I can add it from my content, my organization, Living Atlas, or a URL. So if it is a feature layer, then it can be added into Suite, and you can begin to capture information. You can directly copy and paste into your GIS data.
Okay, great. And can you confirm that Suite can be used offline and synchronized when back online?
Absolutely. So Suite is available on Android and Windows at the moment. So it's the same, it's using the same technology as Collector. So if you are used to using Collector in an offline workflow, it's the exact same. The only time Suite would not work is if it's reliant on, say if you did webhooks, or it was reliant on accessing, potentially posting emails out afterwards and so on and so forth. If it's, or you might hook into GP as well, because those are dependent on services. And if you've not got access to services, those wouldn't work. But in 99% of scenarios, you might not be working like that with Suite. So for phase 1, for example, you can take that out into the field, and we have customers doing that today.
Okay, great. And can this be incorporated into ArcGIS Online web mapping applications?
So Suite is its own app. So it wouldn't be embedded within other applications. So it would be, you would use Suite as an editing app. So the way we use story maps to tell stories about our data, to add that narrative, you use Suite to be able to edit that data. So it's an app that's been purpose built for web editing.
Okay, and is Suite licensed as a premium app, or is, in other words, is it per named user?
It is a premium app, and there is a named user. So you would need to have a level 2 named user to use Suite, and it does have a license cost as well. Because we've got audiences both from the UK and also internationally, I've actually got who you need to contact to find out more information. So you need to contact your local Esri distributor, and if you're joining us from the UK, then you just contact Esri UK, whoever your contact is here. You can also email suite@esriuk.com, and for international inquiries, you can email suiteinternational@esriuk.com. Yeah.
Okay, just got time for a bit more questions. So, are you planning to migrate the functionality of the P1HS template to a dedicated mobile app?
So the way that I see Suite is that you can use Suite in a browser. We can also use Suite offline. So what we are going to be doing with phase 1 is it will go into our new user interface, and you will be able to take that offline. And Suite has been, some of the things I demonstrated here today, you might not have noticed, it's quite subtle, but it is actually designed for a touch-first experience. So the reason why we've got that D-pad in the left-hand side is so you can use your thumb to navigate the map whilst you're editing. If you hold down whilst you're editing, it will show a offset magnifying glass as well, so you can actually see what's under your thumb. So what we've really tried to do in that space, rather than create dedicated mobile apps, is just make sure that Suite works on mobile.
Okay, we've got a couple of people that missed the first couple of minutes. So someone asking here if we can confirm that we're going to make the recording available afterwards, which we will. And then finally, any 3D capability planned for the future?
So we're not going to tackle 3D just yet. It's really, really interesting, the ability to be able to edit 3D data. And I think, in terms of platform, we're getting what's more really exciting apps to edit, to be able to view 3D data. So whilst it's not in our current roadmap, our focus really, and especially for 2020, is going to be looking at really adding some more enhancements for the 2D editing experience.
Okay, let's keep going. So how would licensing work if a Suite app were accessed by the public?
So that's on a per app basis rather than a named user basis.
Okay, and I think that's all the questions that we've got at the moment.
Fantastic. Great. Okay. Well, we will be making this available to you in the next coming days. You should be sent an email, but it will also be available on the website, which is linked on this slide here. The actual website has loads of resources on there. So there's some videos from our customers, Ordnance Survey and Homes England, so you can see how they're using it, and some other overview resources, so help documentation. But thank you very much for joining us today. And yeah, please get in touch.